Ladies and gentlemen, it is your favorite bearded man, the one, the only, Bobbay. I hope you guys are listening, or I should say watching this podcast instead, because then you get to see the bearded man in person. It looks great. I look great. Hopefully the energy pulls you into the podcast, or I'm just blowing smoke and you don't really care at all, which is totally cool. I got a DM the other day from Noah Tondari, and he was asking me about branding, and he wanted to know why I separate the podcast Instagram page and I have its own page. And I thought this might be a good topic for people that are listening to the podcast, because I know there's a lot of content creators. I know there's entrepreneurs and all different people out there. And branding is something I still am always learning and trying to get better at. But I think I've gotten, over the last 2 years, I've gotten a firm grasp of how to separate personal branding and business branding. And I wanted to deep dive into that and hope that it might be able to help you guys. Just to get into it, pretty much Noah had asked, I am somebody who really likes to think about branding and strategy. And I was curious if in any particular podcast you talk about why you have a separate Instagram for your podcast. If not, I'd love to hear why. Personally, it wouldn't be my inclination to go about it that way. So when I first started off the podcast, I didn't have an Instagram page. It took me, I think, about 3 months to realize that I wanted to have my own Instagram page for the Purpose in the Youth page. So when I first started off, I was just pushing it through Bobbay. That was my Instagram. And if you scroll it back, I've never deleted it. And a lot of the feed was becoming a lot of the posts. But as I was starting to ramp up the content and as I saw kind of the long play of where this was going to go, I realized that I need to create a separate page, because eventually I wanted to post daily. And I understood that some people are going to follow me for who I am. They're not going to necessarily follow me because they like the podcast or they listen to the podcast. What I never saw happening, and it kind of just naturally happened, was that eventually I would grow 2 separate brands. And that's kind of what is happening in this very moment in time. Purpose in the Youth podcast is its own. It is the podcast. It is bigger than me. It is a brand. It is a platform. It is turning into not only just a podcast, but I would like to turn this into a media spot of young, passionate people, vlogs, podcasts, blogs, you name it. It's a production. It's a media company, I guess you could say. And so the Instagram page is solely focused on the podcast. It's about the content that is being produced under Purpose in the Youth, the behind the scenes stuff, the podcasts that we're rolling out, the Inside the Vision that's being ran by my man Ben Justice out of Illinois. Then there's going to be more content that kind of comes along the way, but it's not about me. It's about the guests. It's about the people that are coming onto the show, that are being part of Purpose in the Youth as a brand. When we're giving out free merch or we're asking for feedback, it is separating them completely, because I can't post a lot of the stuff that I'm posting on on the Purpose in the Youth page. That's not necessarily a post that I would allow to put under myself. So, right, Purpose in the Youth is focused on inspiring. It's about telling the stories of people. It's about trying to show opportunities to people that follow the page. Like, I'm trying to build this into high energy, positivity, a platform where people can seek opportunity, where they can learn. That's why if you go onto the Instagram page, as much as I see opportunities, I'll post it to the story and I'll say, hey, this person's looking for a photographer. Hey, this guy is an entrepreneur and he needs this to happen. I'm trying to make this into a platform where all of these opportunities can be, as well as all of this media and content is. Whereas Bobbay is a lot of different. I wear a lot of different hats under Bobbay. Yes, I'm the host of Purpose in the Youth. Like, the core of me is that finding that passion, finding that purpose. That's kind of how I got into this whole media world. I wasn't sitting 2 years ago with a camera in my room shooting podcast vlogs. Like, that wasn't a thing. But through it all, then I'm starting to really push myself to try different things. I'm trying to build Bobbay out as its own brand. High energy, once again, very positive, but also goofy. Wants to be like the center of attention, wants to be the man of the party. It's its own brand. So I got very lucky because I kind of saw this happening before it did, that yes, I was early on in the podcast, and I think I started the page when I was at probably like episode 14 or 15. But I saw the long play. I saw that eventually I want to build this into something much bigger. I'm going to be putting out content on a daily basis. The people that follow Bobbbaay don't necessarily follow me for the podcast, so I have to respect that. And they might want to follow me for getting the backstory of who I am and just learning anything and everything about me. And so for people that are listening, Noah, or for people that are building up their own brand or building up, whether it's personal brand or a brand that you would like to turn into something bigger, I think it's very important to separate the two. As much as they intersect, they are still completely separate entities. And you don't want, I think you hurt yourself by putting it under one umbrella. And it is harder because you have to balance. Now you're putting out two different platforms of content. Sometimes you can mix, and you'll see in my posts that there are some of the same posts, but there's separate captions. If there's like a behind the scenes, then I'll be pretty straightforward to the point on the podcast page. I'll say, recently we just rolled out Justin Escalona's behind the scenes podcast. So for instance, the post on my personal page is going to be, what did I say? Hold up. Let me pull it up just so I get this right. Yeah. So on my personal Instagram page, I said, whole lot of content being produced at the Content Crib. What else would you expect? On the flip side, I'm going to post that same piece. I'm going to put it under Purpose in the Youth, and I'm going to say something a little bit more formal, a little bit more packaged, and say, hey guys and gals, brand new behind the scenes of Justin Escalona coming through for the podcast, just dropped. Check it out. Link is in our bio. You see the separation? One is very business. One is very packaged. The other is more of my personality, that kind of like joking, but being sarcastic and trying to be funny and thinking I'm like the biggest content producer in the world when I'm not. Or you have to separate the two. So I hope that this is giving you some insight, Noah, as to why and how I think it is important to separate the two. And I think it plays out in the longevity of where you're going. I think, once again, if you're an artist, you're not going to necessarily have two separate podcasts, one for your personal and one for your music. But branding, if you're starting something, a separate entity, you should have a separate Instagram or a separate page for it, because at the end of the day, that is going to be its own thing. You are going to be your own thing. And as much as they come together and they are part of the brand, they are still kind of separate. And I think it's extremely important, because you're going to get people that want to follow, at least in my instance, I'm going to get people that want to follow the podcast. I'm going to get people that just want to follow me. And then there's going to be that mix that want to follow both. But I can't just assume that if they're following me, they want to follow the podcast. Or I can't assume that if they're following the podcast, they want to follow me. You see how that works? So separate your branding. It's going to be a lot more work because you're going to have to produce more content. But I think in the long play, it's smarter. And just be aware of kind of how you present things. I treat things very professionally on the podcast page because it's not me. It's bigger than me. It's supposed to be a business. It's supposed to turn into something much bigger than who I am. And then on the other side, you have Bobbay, his own Instagram, just being who he is, showing the Uber life, showing the grind, and really trying to showcase my personality. And I hope people fall in love with both. If they fall in love with one or the other, so be it. As long as I got your attention, your eyeballs, or your ears listening to what I have to say, I think that's pretty cool. So, Noah, I hope this was helpful to you. Anybody that's listening or watching on YouTube, iTunes podcast app, SoundCloud, Spotify, I hope this was helpful. If you guys or gals have a certain question, please DM me. I'm looking to always create these types of vlogs and podcasts, except it's hard for me to just think of ideas. I don't know what's of value to people. So when I get DMs like this, I see it as an opportunity to create it. And so I'm always looking for more questions. So please don't hesitate to reach out. If you guys are listening on an audio platform, please screenshot this episode, post it to your Instagram story, tagging @PurposeInTheYouth. And if you're watching on YouTube, please like, comment, subscribe below. Drop a couple comments. Drop a couple bearded man emojis. Let's get it lit. Let's get it popping in the comments section. I want to show these people that Bobbay is the real deal, because I'm going to be the real deal. Purpose in the Youth going to the top. I'm going to the moon. You guys are coming with me. So is Elon Musk. So hope you guys enjoy this. I will catch you next time. It's your favorite bearded man, the one, the only Bobbay. We'll catch you guys next time. See ya.